Where can you have the most fun for $5 these school holidays? At Luna Park. $5 to ride all day for mums, dads and kids. Littlies under 4 and grandparents get in for free, and you can stay as long as you like and have as many rides as you like. One more time for the dummies. Special school holiday prices at Luna Park. Only $5 to ride all day. Kids under 4 and grandparents free. See you at Luna Park just for fun.
Luna Park Sydney is a heritage amusement park first opened in 1935 on the shores of Sydney Harbour, on what was formerly a steelworks during the construction of the iconic Harbour Bridge. It consisted of relocated classic amusement rides from the defunct Luna Park Glenelg in South Australia, until the majority of those rides were removed in the aftermath of a fatal fire in 1979. In the 1980s, the park was overhauled and operated by a group called Australian Amusement Associates. From 1982 to 1988, the park featured a collection of typical flat rides and a Schwarzkopf Jetstar named Geronimo. However, Australian Amusement Associates management led to concerning maintenance issues. Independent auditors found that rides were inadequately maintained, and for the second time in its history, Luna Park was forced to close to the public in 1988. At that time, lobbying by locals and a group known as the Friends of Luna Park led to the state government passing the Luna Park Site Act of 1990, protecting the park legislatively and opening the door for the park to be revived. Throughout the beginning of the 1990s, the Luna Park Heritage Trust would entrust the operations of the park to a company called the Whittingslow Group, who began a thorough overhaul of the park, featuring both new and returning rides. This rejuvenation would include the return of the Wild Mouse from its time at the Royal Agricultural Showgrounds, as well as a reconstruction of the classic Rotor Ride, along with a collection of new flat rides. But Whittingslow were also ambitious to reintroduce a signature roller coaster to the park. The park's original wooden Big Dipper had been a crowd favourite from opening day until it was removed in 1979 after being damaged in the Ghost Train fire. The 1995 reopening of Luna Park Sydney would feature the revival of the Big Dipper name at Luna Park. Ambitious to include a signature coaster of significant scale, the park purchased additional land from the state government. A small parcel of former railway siding behind Coney Island was added to Luna Park's boundaries, being dubbed Maloney's Corner and giving the park additional space to work with. Hoping to add a significant thrill coaster to draw crowds to the park, particularly in the hopes of competing for attendance against the presence of the much larger Wonderland Sydney, Luna Park would turn to one of the biggest manufacturers in the game at the time. Aerodynamics were an American manufacturer founded in 1945 by Angus Anderson, Carl Bacon, William Hardeman, and Ed Morgan in California. The company broke into the roller coaster industry with a bang when they worked alongside Disneyland to produce the world's first tubular steel roller coaster, the Matterhorn bobsleds, in 1959. Since then, Arrow had rocketed to the forefront of the steel coaster game, most notably for their looping and inverting roller coasters. The company produced the first modern inverting roller coaster in 1975 when they unveiled their corkscrew model at Knott's Berry Farm, and since then the concept had evolved into large, custom looping coasters. In the early 1990s, they were producing such rides as Drakenfire at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Virginia, a towering 46-metre behemoth with 6 inversions, and Shockwave at Six Flags Great America in Illinois, which had opened in 1988 as the first coaster ever to feature 7 inversions, still a record at the time. With other notable looping coaster manufacturers like B&M still new to the game, Arrow were almost indisputably the kings of the genre, and perhaps the coaster industry overall. They had recently installed the world's first full-circuit hypercoaster in 1989 with Cedar Point's Magnum XL200, and had continued to push the height and speed records with further hypercoaster projects at Blackpool Pleasure Beach and Buffalo Bills Resort and Casino. With ambitions of building a world-class coaster to put the park on the map in a big way, Luna Park turned to Aerodynamics for the design of the second Big Dipper. The American firm produced the designs for the coaster, with parts being fabricated in Australia at facilities in both Melbourne and Newcastle. With the park's reopening in 1995, the Big Dipper was reborn. Standing 40 metres tall with 900 metres of track, a top speed of 85 kilometres an hour, and both a reverse sidewinder and a vertical loop, Big Dipper 2.0 was by far the biggest ride ever to be constructed in the long history of the Harbourside Amusement Park. The Big Dipper was custom designed for Luna Park's narrow land area and historical buildings, and constructed at a cost of $8 million. It stood high above what is now the Big Top on the former site of the original Big Dipper. It was one of the last custom looping coasters built by Arrow before the emerging European innovation of companies like B&M would send the company bankrupt in 2002. The constraints on the design enforced by Luna Park's bizarre space requirements made it a particularly strange and unique looper. The ride's lift hill stood 40 metres tall, dropping the train into a series of meandering bank turns over the front end of the park, before the coaster dove into a narrow trench between Coney Island and the steep embankment on the eastern edge of the park. From here, the ride rocketed out into the newly purchased Maloney's Corner, racing through a highly banked helix, and then to the first of two back-to-back inversions, a reverse Sidewinder. The Sidewinder was directly followed by a vertical loop, after which the ride rose back to the station level, turning 180 degrees into the final brakes. While it might not have been one of the forceful and record-breaking creations of the likes of Drakenfire or Shockwave, Big Dipper was undoubtedly one of Arrow's most bizarre and unique creations. Characterised by its incredible views of the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge and Opera House from the peak of the lift hill, and its unexpectedly forceful final inversions, it was a behemoth for a park of this size and kind. The coaster would open with the park to great fanfare in January 1995, or at least, great fanfare was planned, but the reopening of Luna Park Sydney could only be described as a disaster. From the moment the reconstruction of Luna Park began in 1991, nearby residents had vocally opposed certain aspects of the park plan, the Big Dipper being chief amongst them. The Environmental Protection Authority had approved the construction of the coaster on the sole condition that the ride would abide by strict noise control guidelines and that the park operators would cover the cost of soundproofing for any residents that would be affected by noise. Construction went ahead, but as the park opened to the public, the complaints from residents continued. Poor weather conditions hampered the early weeks of Luna Park's reopening, causing low attendance and financial struggles. Meanwhile, the legal battles with residents continued, causing North Sydney Council to impose restrictions on the coaster's operating hours. The ride would now only be able to operate on Friday evenings and all day on Saturdays. This further impacted park attendance as the highlight attraction of the park was out of operation for 5.5 days of the week. Very quickly, it seemed that nothing was going Luna Park's way. As residents began to pursue formal legal action, the newly elected Bob Carr government also withdrew a guarantee of a $14 million loan to the Luna Park Heritage Trust. The Trust's board of directors was dissolved, administrators took control, and the park was forced to close yet again on February 14, 1996, barely over a year after reopening. While community support for the park reopening again was strong, it was immediately clear that the Big Dipper was unlikely to be part of the park's future plans. Indeed, the government made it a requirement of any future park operator that the Big Dipper be sold. The park stood not operating for almost a decade, operating occasionally under strict court-ordered conditions for charity events and occasional weekends and school holidays. The next redevelopment of the park was awarded to the Metro Edgeley Group, along with parts of the park being rezoned to allow for other entertainment venues to become a part of the park's plans. Metro Edgeley's plans would involve restoring the majority of the rides in the park, but to replace the Big Dipper with a 2,000-seat entertainment and concert venue known as the Big Top. With that, the Big Dipper's fate was sealed. Thankfully, however, it did find a new home.
This big, there's nowhere like Dreamworld. The Big 5 thrill rides.
In 2001, Dreamworld purchased the Big Dipper for a reported $3 million, spending a further $2.5 million to relocate the ride and install it at the Gold Coast Park. The ride was transported on 136 trucks between Sydney and the Gold Coast, with modifications being made to readjust the ride's supports to suit its new home. Set to become Dreamworld's first major full-circuit coaster in almost 2 decades, and the first new coaster on the Gold Coast since 1997, the newly rethemed Cyclone opened to the public on Boxing Day 2001. To accommodate for the ride's bizarre design, which placed the station atop the single-story Big Dipper building, Dreamworld constructed a spiral ramp queue which initially featured physical and visual effects, including lighting effects and a shaking, vibrating floor that simulated being trapped in a cyclone. The ride's opening at Dreamworld was credited with a 6.9% increase in attendance at the park and a 13.3% increase in revenue that helped the park negotiate a difficult financial period with the bankruptcy of Ansett Australia. Under its new name, Cyclone, the coaster now operated at the front of Dreamworld, one of the most prominent rides in the park's skyline when viewed from the Pacific Highway. The ride quickly became one of the most popular at Dreamworld, surprisingly, even more so than other, more notable thrill rides at the park. According to the park, in its first 6 months, more than half of all visitors to Dreamworld would ride the Cyclone, placing its popularity above both Tower of Terror and the Giant Drop, only falling short to Thunder River Rapids Ride and Rocky Hollow Log Ride as the most popular rides in the park. In 2003, the Cyclone would become the park's signature looping coaster with the removal of the classic Thunderbolt. Dreamworld had actually approached Aerodynamics during consultations on the feasibility of redeveloping the ride, but it was deemed too difficult due to the condition of the ride, and Cyclone's neighbour would be removed in August 2003. Cyclone became one of Dreamworld's icons, finding its status as one of Dreamworld's big thrill rides, and even featuring in the television intro for Big Brother during its time at the park. The opening of White Water World in 2006 saw the ride given some notable interactions, as waterslide towers were constructed in the middle of the ride's helix, making the Cyclone the one ride that crosses the boundary between both parks. The interaction with the slides and towers really adds an extra sense of speed and proximity that makes the helix one of the most thrilling moments of the ride. Cyclone became a mainstay thrill ride for the park, and it would operate for 14 years at Dreamworld before undergoing a major refurbishment in 2015.
Dreamworld's Big Six has seen them all. The Lady Boys, the Eye Clenchers, the Premature Screamers, the Brown Panthers, the Suddenly Religious, and the Silent Ones. The Big Six would just like to say, stand up! Book online now at dreamworld.com.au.
That ad didn't age quite so well. In October that year, Dreamworld began development on a new motorsport precinct in the area surrounding the Cyclone's entrance. Along with a complete refurbishment and rebrand of the ride, the Motorsport Experience Precinct featured upgraded V8 Supercars Redline racing simulators, as well as a collection of motorsport memorabilia displayed in what is today the Dreamworld Exhibition Centre, including a collection of cars belonging to Australian motorsport legend Peter Brock. Cyclone's retheme would be part of a naming rights deal with Mattel property Hot Wheels, becoming the Hot Wheels Sidewinder. The theming was replaced with a collection of Hot Wheels branding, and the ride received new trains from Dutch manufacturer Vekoma. These trains replaced Arrow's over-the-shoulder restraints with their new vest restraint design, drastically improving rider comfort. The trains also featured onboard audio, although that feature is no longer in use today. While the Motorsport Experience Precinct was relatively well received with motorsports fans, the area was somewhat of a failure in the grander scheme. Offering very little for those with no interest in motorsports, and with the rebranding of the Cyclone being considered low effort, the area simply didn't get the expected foot traffic. Furthering the criticism was confusion over the placement of the themed area. While it was not unusual for Dreamworld to feature motorsport-themed attractions, with the previous edition of the Redline simulators and, of course, the motor coaster having existed before, its placement in Ocean Parade, combined with the fact that it now made for two separate motorsport-themed areas alongside Motor Coaster, left many feeling underwhelmed by the inclusion of the new area. While Motorsport Experience was also supposed to include a motorsport-themed dining experience, it was not long before the lack of foot traffic resulted in that particular restaurant remaining closed more often than not. After 5 years of Hot Wheels branding, therefore, it came as no surprise when Dreamworld announced that the Sidewinder would again be given a rebranding and refurbishment.
Hold your breath. Make a wish. Count to 3.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want, do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it.
Motorsport Experience was mostly abandoned, with the Dreamworld Exhibition Centre becoming more general exhibition space, and the Redline simulators and Brock exhibition being removed. In February 2020, the park closed the Sidewinder for its major refurbishment, alongside the revitalisation of ABC Kids World and the retirement of the Rocky Hollow log ride. The entire coaster received a paint job, with the yellow track becoming teal and the pale blue supports becoming white. The coaster's new name was announced on December 20th, 2020, being rethemed to the Gold Coaster, with a theme reminiscent of the Gold Coast in the 1970s. The Vekoma trains received a pastel recoloring, and the Hot Wheels theming was again replaced, this time by surfboards and beach-style theming. Today, the theming of the ride is very minimalistic, particularly when compared with its original queue experience with its various special effects. Today, the Gold Coaster has been in operation at Dreamworld for 24 years, and the future of the ride has occasionally come under question. It currently resides in a corner of Ocean Parade that is infrequently trafficked, with no other attractions nearby, and even the gates to Whitewater World no longer being in use. The Shaka Shack gift shop is rarely utilised as the ride's exit as intended, with staff being reallocated elsewhere and ride photos simply being viewed on outdoor screens instead. While the layout of Gold Coaster is unusual and the intertwining with Whitewater World means that not all of its space would be directly available to a replacement, it does represent a particularly large plot of prime real estate at the front of the park, which would be perfect for a daunting roller coaster that would play a significant role in the skyline. There is also a lot of space formerly occupied by the Thunderbolt that is no longer in use today. In the future, I would like to see the Gold Coaster replaced by a new-gen Vekoma coaster with inversions and a forceful layout. A tilt coaster could be an excellent option to bring an eye-catching gimmick to the park and really give Dreamworld a signature coaster. But for now, I actually have an incredibly soft spot for the Gold Coaster. While it may have a bizarre layout and some janky moments as a slightly more primitive arrow design, it features two excellent forceful inversions. It's just one of those coasters that isn't great on the surface, but it means a great deal to me, and I kind of love it for all its chaos and messy bits. When did you first ride this Arrow creation? As Big Dipper, Cyclone, Hot Wheels Sidewinder, or Gold Coaster? And what are your thoughts on the ride? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what coaster you want to learn the history of next. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to a commenter, at Reese Lambeth 1083 on YouTube. Reese commented on my recent Thunder River Rapids video that he thinks COVID may have saved Dreamworld in some ways, as it allowed the park to regroup without having to pay staff or pay for upkeep for a while. Thanks for your comment, Reese. I think that's a very interesting point, and I think that you and that staff member might be right to some extent. While I'm sure Dreamworld was hit by the pandemic in other ways, just like all businesses were, there's certainly an argument that it came at a good time for them. Having an excuse to shut everything down, press pause on some of the operating costs, and position themselves for their next big steps was probably very helpful from a planning point of view. That's probably another video, that idea. What might be different about our parks if the pandemic never happened? Thank you so much for watching and for being a supporter of my channel. If you'd like to be featured in my next video, you can leave a comment, send a message in my Discord linked in the description, or you can send me something in the mail. My PO box details are on the screen now. For now, this is Maloney's Coasters from the 1970s Gold Coast, reminding you to be kind to one another, have a lovely day, and keep gaining credits. Bye!